Well, response to Nigeria's balance of payment challenge has led to the creation of a parallel foreign exchange market to avoid the short-term effects of a depreciation of the naira on domestic prices while retaining some degree of control over capital outflows and international reserves. However, the situation has had many turns and the country has witnessed a lot of effort by the CBN to change the tide. We're going to review some of that this morning with Oladipo Ajayi, analyst with Chapel Hill Denham. Hello, good morning, Oladipo Ajayi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
So let's take your view with what's going on in the FX space now. The CBN, on the back of discontinuing FX sales to the BDC, increased allocation to bank for invisible transaction. Can we say that this has had the expected and desired effect?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you look at where we were as at the time the CBN actually took that decision, and where we are currently now, I think is a very good decision because what we've seen in the market is that we've seen more supply on the back of the CBN, and at the same time, we've seen more of effective distribution of FX on the part of bank as well. If you look at it before now, it's always very difficult for people to actually get access to PTA, BTA, and other visibles. But with the full push of responsibility on the back, we'll see more effective distribution of that. And one way or the other, we've seen the impact in the market. And at the same time, what that has done to the market is that the CBN has been able to actually now supply appropriately. Because when the CBN governor mentioned that at the May MPC, where that decision was taken, he actually highlighted that they are currently selling close to about $150 million to BDC on a weekly basis. So the view is that if such volume is actually pushed into the hand of banks for effective distribution, that will actually see the impact in the market. And as we speak, now we are currently seeing a better impact compared to where we were.
Okay, so with the report from CBN that the net foreign exchange flow, the way it is now, does it mean that we are in a new dawn?
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I highlighted earlier, because it means that we are in new regime. It was a very difficult decision on the part of CBN at that particular point in time, but I think in retrospect, for them, they feel that they've taken the right decision. Although it took them a long time before they actually went that route, but if you look at it critically, there's no better decision than what they've done, because it means that we can now take effects from that point, from here now to where we want to actually go to. And one thing about the pressure we're currently seeing on FX is because of demand and supply. So with effective distribution of FX, of available FX, I think we'll be able to actually reduce the pressure. While CBN are actually putting other measures in place to actually further stabilize Naira appropriately.
And also, looking at the foreign reserve, it's in the north, about $40 billion. Do you think the days of consistent pressure on the Naira is over?
For me, I think we are getting close to that day. I think we are getting closer to it because we currently have a very healthy reserve currently. We are moving closer to 41 billion, and oil price is still on the upside move. And all we need to just do is to further ramp up supply to the market so that we'll be able to maximize the current high oil price. And looking at that, I think we're getting closer to the day because with that level of reserve, the CBN should be able to now come up with policies that will further strengthen Naira. And what they need to do currently is that to reassure the market and reassure foreign investors at this point. Because foreign investors, most time before coming to your market, they look at many indices, they look at sanity in your market, they look at your reserve, that's your capability to actually repay in the event that they want to leave your country. And they also look at the return on your investments. So as we speak currently, I think the CBN needs to look at all these factors. And but whenever those factors are actually met, I think we'll likely see influx of foreign investors into our market. Some of the boxes has been ticked, reserve aspect has been ticked. So we just need to work around other aspects for us to actually lure investors into our market.
Okay, but I mean, obviously, reserve is connected to whatever is happening to oil prices. And we see that the current surge in COVID cases has also reduced demand. And then we see the price dropping, even though this morning we see that it's a bit up compared to yesterday. But I mean, even the report says that it's heading for a 2-week low. So don't you think that perhaps we shouldn't get so comfortable and feel that our reserve is actually heading on a bullish run now?
Yeah, even with a 2-week low, we are still far better than what the budget benchmark. I think budget benchmark was $58. So it means that anything above $58 is a very good one for us. And as we speak, we are far above that market price as we speak now. We are not $80. So it means that even if we actually market need to retrace, market will retrace to around 70 terrain, which is still not a very bad one for us. So I think all we just need currently is, because as we speak, we are not producing to our quota. So what we just need to do is to ramp up supply to the market and find a way to actually use that to augment whatever retracement in price, so as to continue to keep the reserve stable at this level.
And then the information about the rate spike during the week, in the FX market. What's your take on that?
Yeah, we had the information about the CBN intervention rate to FAIs. If you look at the past, it's past average around 411 for 411 for a spot, and around 419 for a forward transaction. But that took a new turn on Monday, and when CBN sold at 443 and 451 respectively for both markets. And there was an initial panic in the market that to actually confirm if this is going to be permanent, or maybe the CBN has taken that another step to actually devalue the currency. But subsequent action in the market shows that it sounds like a one-off to us. And so, however, we are waiting for the next intervention fund for foreign investors. That will for that give us a clearer picture of what direction the CBN is actually to tow around that line.
This creates an uncertain atmosphere for foreign investors. If, I mean, we do not know for sure, we have to wait and see, okay, next time, are they going to sell it for 411 or 40? Isn't this a discouraging factor for foreign investors?
I think that's one of the things that I said, I mentioned earlier on, that we need to actually tick. That's one of the boxes that we mentioned earlier that we need to tick. I said that sanity of the market, and when you cannot predict the market, it means that there's a lot of insanity in that particular market. And I think that's currently what is actually happening in our market now. And this to me, if at the end of the day, what we'll see is that they are consistently selling at that rate to FES, and whereas the high-in window is still trading around 411, 415 level. It means to us that we have created an additional window, which is totally against the expectation of the market. Even currently with the multiple windows we have currently, the IMF has continually criticized the CBN around that line, that we need to actually match the windows together and create a single FX market where we can actually get liquidity, and at the same time be able to predict the direction of the markets appropriately. So I think the CBN needs to actually clear the air on this and be able to reassure the markets of the direction of FX.
Okay, but is it, realistically possible to merge the windows? Like, that the IMF has talked about the different rates in the different windows. But from your perspective, as someone who has a hands-on information, is it possible to have a single rate in the FX space of Nigeria?
I think it is very, very possible. because sincerely speaking, before now, I'm sure we've been at this point before, around 2016. We've been here before, where we have multiple windows. And because one thing about multiple windows, like create room for arbitrage, and they create room for rent seeking, and that's one of the things that the CBN actually fighting against. You can't fight against something, but yet you are creating the opportunity for people to actually take advantage of that. And I think we can actually do that because what gave back to the higher window is same thing that is exactly what's currently happening now. The CBN is actually looking at to actually align all markets into a particular market where we can actually get price discovery. So I think it is very possible, although at the initial stage there will be volatility in the market, but what that would go in at the end of the day, market will stabilize and find its level. And when market finds its level, it's easier for CBN to provide liquidity at the fair value of the currency. And at the same time, it will help CBN on the part of their own fund management, because what that will do to the markets is that we'll see a lot of foreign investments into the country as a result of clarity of the FX market, and also liquidity of the markets. It doesn't make sense for us to have several markets, but yet they are not liquid. I think it's even better for us to have just a single market where you actually can find liquidity and market can actually trade appropriately.
Doesn't that point to the fact that perhaps the problem that should be focused on now is liquidity, supply of these effects, and then other things might just fall into place?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, supply is very, very key. And there's no how. And also, at the same time, you cannot actually expect the CBN to totally float the currency at this particular point in time. It's actually very dangerous. But however, the CBN needs to continue to supply the market. And one of the problems we currently have is that if the CBN is the sole supplier of the market, then that's where the problem lies. We do criticize the fact that foreign investors FEIs that are actually hot money. I agree to a great extent that FEIs are hot money, but at the same time, they help you in their inflows and half will help you in the money management. It's just like you saying a current account holder in a bank is hot money. Of course, it helps the bank to actually manage its liquidity. When the inflow comes, you know how to manage. When the exact flow, you know how to manage. So, in the same vein, we need to work on that seriously. And I think by so doing, when there's clarity in your markets, the CBN will now have to sit back and just do more like an oversight of the market. So what you do is that when you know that the market is misbehaving and you notice that the naira is getting full beating, you can come in at that particular point and supply the market. And when you find out that, oh, naira is threatening beyond a particular level, you can go into the market and buy. That is what we mean by managing liquidity in the market. So I think the CBN need to actually work around that, because if they are the sole supplier of FX to the market, we'll continue to be on this page.
So what's from your perspective would be, apart from, the CBN stepping back, like you said, not being the sole supplier, when we talk about creating more liquidity in that space, we've talked a lot about diversity, attracting foreign, diversification, beg your pardon, and attracting more foreign investors. I suppose these are other ways, that can also boost liquidity or Forex.
Yeah, I agree so much with you about the diversification of our economy. And if you look at that, that is not solely in the purview of the CBN. It's more of the monetary and the policy and the fiscal policy guys. They need to work together. And sincerely speaking, a lot of things has to be fixed, because it's not only about effects. It's more structural, because in a situation where we find exporters are finding it very difficult to actually export their products. Their container stays days at the port before being exported, and all those things like that. And the bottleneck they face to actually get their goods outside the country. Those are the things that the government needs to actually work on seriously. Even if you need to actually create incentive for exporters to actually give them that opportunity for them to actually want to export their product. I think we need to toe that line seriously as we speak. And at the same time, aside oil, the government's already looking at agriculture, but how much are we actually doing in that space? Is it more for subsistence, just for consumption, or we are pushing for a larger scale, more of like industrialization of that sector in a situation whereby, for example, we are currently producing cocoa. So is it to actually produce the raw material and export, or to produce the raw material and also to actually produce the finished product from the raw material so that we can generate a better effort in that line? Because of what you use is that you produce cocoa, you export cocoa, you import chocolate. To me, to a great extent, it doesn't mean anything, because the inflow from the cocoa is what you actually are flowing at the same time for the importation of the finished product. So we need to work around that seriously. And also in the same vein, the PMX and diesel and all those lines as well. In one of the CBN meetings, the central bank governor actually opined that currently we like 30% of the inflow from oil sale is actually the same thing that we use for importation of refined products.
Yeah.
So if you actually want to actually get out of this current situation, we have to turn most of this thing around so that for us to have LD FX reserve and the capacity to actually supply to the market appropriately.
All right, thank you so much, Oladipo Ajayi. Well, the journey towards a healthy FX supply, I guess. We do hope that we do
Yeah,
end that journey one day. Thank you so much and enjoy your weekend.
you're most welcome. Thank you.